It is Tuesday, April the 19th. Welcome to the Post Daily News Show. I am John Pollock, and we have lots to get into on today's show. So if you want to get in any of your super chats, any of your questions, we will be going to those before the end of the show. I am not alone today. Joining me, the traveler herself, Post Wrestling's own Karen Peterson, right back from a big trip to the Windy City for the Windy City Riot. Karen, you're in one piece, back in a much warmer climate of Florida.
I felt like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz just getting whisked away to the Windy City where it was way too cold for my Floridian blood, but I am back home, back where it is sunny and very much summertime climate.
Well, you got to experience Windy City Riot live in person, which from a viewing perspective sounded like the sure bet to enjoy this show uninterrupted, unlike some of us that were streaming the show on Saturday night. But just take us to, first of all, what stood out about this event that you wanted to go see it in person in Chicago?
I was reassured that it would be a good show, and I had the travel itch. The last time I went to a New Japan show that wasn't here in Florida was the Resurgence show back in August of last year. So I was like, I need to get out of the house. And I was hoping that spring would have cooperated and I could have seen cherry blossoms in Chicago, but it was cold and wet and very windy. So that did not happen. But of course, any chance I get to scream Kaze Ninare at the top of my lungs is always a good time. Seeing Nagata show up, not gonna lie, I was on the railing by the stage. I totally fangirled when his music hit and he ran out. I'm not ashamed about it. I'm very comfortable saying, yes, I got caught in 4D or 4K or whatever it is, just screaming my head off. The building that we were in, I know that people were talking about the quality of the live stream. The building they were in, the Odeum, apparently is like over 40 years old. It's a very old building. It's getting torn down soon. So, and it's also out by the airport. So it was kind of felt like it was in a broadcast black hole because people's wireless signals were going down.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like my phone kept searching and searching and searching for a signal. So the battery died real quick. So it wasn't, it's not the building's, I mean, it is the building's fault, but it's not like necessarily entirely New Japan's fault. It's not entirely Fight's fault, but I did see that battery pack swap out happen live because the girl ran right past me with the battery pack.
Oh, wow.
I get reminded when I go to live shows that I'm not in Japan because people like to stand up and I'm very short, and inevitably I end up with the guy that's about 6 foot something in front of me who puts his arms up, brings a sign. So I had a bit of frustration with the live viewing experience as well. And with the hardcore match or the Chicago street fight, it was great, but it was, they went out in the audience and I'm just like, I'll just wait till it's on New Japan World to see. And then I saw Shane Hayes get buried with chairs. And then one chair actually made its way back to the third row and hit me in the ankle. I'm
the chair
fine.
hit you.
I'm a hardcore girl too now, apparently. But yeah, it slid off the stack of chairs that they were piling on top of Shane and just like about back 3 rows and just clipped my ankle because my foot was against the railing. I should know better by sitting against a railing during a hardcore match, not to be anywhere near the vicinity of the railing. I did get worried because at one point when they launched the sledgehammer out, it sounded like it landed on top of Shane after it fell out of the ring. So I'm hoping he's okay.
Wow.
But yeah, the room was packed. It was sold out. Everyone had a great time. I don't think there was a match that people didn't like. Personally, I just go to have a good time, and I love seeing the progression of the Young Lions and the LA Dojo guys. And yeah, like the only hard part for me in the main event is that I'm squeamish when it comes to blood. So the moment Moxley stands up and he starts bleeding, I'm like, oh, here we go. Color's leaving my face. I feel like I'm going to throw up on my shoes. But I came out of this event with the most unexpected response, is that for all my naysaying about the United Empire, seeing how supportive all of them were during that match, like literally circling the ring and cheering Ospreay on, I think I might be a United Empire fan now. I don't know what happened to me.
It seemed certainly coming out of the show as well that and you can tell me that like this audience, like we kind of look at throughout the pandemic and the interest level of New Japan, and it seems like these cards with who they are bringing over from Japan, and also importantly what they're setting up for next month, it's that you leave this show and it is directly sending people to next month, that it does seem that as the pandemic is, I don't want to say winding down, but knock on wood, things are getting better, that it does seem that once travel restrictions are easing, we're getting more of a genuine New Japan product rather than a watered down version or a stagnant one when we're talking about the Japanese product.
It feels like everything's coming back to how it used to be. I do like that they are keeping it fresh by bringing in a lot of new people. I lost my mind seeing Shota Umino. I don't think I've ever seen him wrestle in person, so being able to see how far he's come from being a young lion and how he's succeeding in the UK, I enjoyed the little harken back to having Moxley be the one to introduce him for the US of J challenge, and that he didn't get laid out by Jay in 3 minutes, because as soon as he started walking down, I'm like, this is going to be a quick match, but we got 15 minutes out of it and people were really behind it. And one of the things I like about Jay, his challenge, is that they're bringing in very, very fresh matchups. But at the same time, I want someone to serve Jay White a loss. I want him to I like it when he's desperate and hungry and like he gets very creative and very dangerous when he gets backed into a corner. And that's the only thing with the US of J challenge. He hasn't gotten there yet. He's been having great matches, but he's still like blissfully removed while his henchmen do all the machinations for everything that's happening in Japan with Bullet Club.
What do you see as kind of the next step now for Shota Umino, and when he is kind of ingrained back into New Japan off this excursion?
I believe he has some matches coming up in Rev Pro. I don't know how much longer he's going to be there. Some people are getting the impression that it's not going to be very long, but the pandemic did take out a significant chunk of time for him to be over there. I know that they want to eventually loop back around to him versus Ospreay, because it was Ospreay beating him down, and how they introduced Aussie Open into the United Empire was they helped him beat down Shota before Shota was challenging for the belt. So I don't know if they're going to put the Rev Pro UK Heavyweight Championship on Shota, but I would like to see him at least attempt to go for it one more time.
It's also a good bridge if you're going to do this Ospreay Moxley rematch down the road, that you could have Shota Umino in the middle there. Speaking about the main event as well, watching it, I thought it was a terrific main event, and I really didn't have a big issue with the ending. But live in the building, like, you guys are not getting commentary. How did the audience react to the ending of the match, and was there confusion? It
was completely confused. Like, we were all like, wait, that was it? Like, they rang the bell and then they rang it again. And it was like, are they restarting the match, or are they not sure about it? And then Moxley gave referee Jeremy Marcus a nice death rider. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now. And then, seeing United Empire all climb in there and like basically holding Ospreay down instead of trying to letting him get back at Moxley. I think it'll definitely set up something interesting moving forward, especially if they're going to keep on this particular avenue. I think Moxley calling out Tanahashi for next month in the Capitol kind of adds an extra layer to Tanahashi's match with Ospreay in the Fukuoka PayPay Dome on May 1st. I am kicking myself because flights to DC that week for Collision are stupid expensive, even though it's just an hour and a half jaunt up the East Coast for me. So I'm just like, I'll just watch it from home and be sad that I won't see Tanahashi live. But that's okay. I'll be fine.
Well, it seems like there are going to be many opportunities with this growing relationship between AEW and New Japan. And perhaps a name that we will be seeing, whether it be stateside or in Japan, is Kushida. Fightful Select reported on Monday night that he has departed WWE with his contract coming due. And Dave Meltzer has followed up with the understanding on at least the WWE side, and I've heard the same, that they are of the belief that he will be going back to New Japan. So Kushida's a very interesting figure to look at during this WWE run. He came in early 2019, and that was at a time NXT was much different. He was hampered by some injuries, and then you had the whole changeover to 2.0, and I think the writing was on the wall, Karen, that this was not going to be a final destination for Kushida. Are you surprised at all by this move, that this contract's coming due and he is opting to go elsewhere?
I don't think it came to me as a surprise. I think part of me was resigned to it happening because he's been in NXT for 3 years. He honestly should have went up a year and a half ago. If they weren't going, like when they put the Cruiserweight Championship on him, it was great that they put a championship on it. But when he left New Japan, he wanted to fight open weight. And that was why he left New Japan, because they were keeping him in the junior division. And he felt he had done everything he could in the junior division. So then he came to NXT. He fought Cassius Ohno, Chris Hero. I was there the night he showed up in Full Sail. I cried my eyes out when I got home because I was so happy to see him there. He had some great matches with Drew Gulak and many others. And then they just kind of kept him in the mid card. They had him go for the North American Championship. Didn't put it on him. They had him go after Walter. They had him go after the NXT Championship, and nothing came of it. So it was more like, if you're not going to send him to main and let him get that main roster paycheck, then you know what? He's got a family to take care of. And with the pandemic going on, if he chooses to go home, I won't be mad at him for it. Personally, I have a whole litany of ideas of what I would like to see happen for him. But if he's been quiet and and his contract is null and void and he doesn't have a non-compete, he could be the mystery upset for Best of the Super Juniors if that's where he's going to. But I don't want him to stay in the junior division if he goes back to New Japan. I want him open weight or heavyweight, strong, you name it, just send him everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's, he left New Japan, I think, with the idea of of this goal, and where the current New Japan right now, you could put him into a junior heavyweight role as to reintroduce him, but I think you can get a lot more out of him being in kind of that kind of open weight status. He's not getting any younger, and the fact is, these were some prime years that were spent in NXT. I won't say they were all negative, but largely, like, he has to leave this unfulfilled, and it was a major choice on his part, not just financially, but uprooting your family. And I think you're going to want to make the most out of maybe what could be like your last key years of what is New Japan going to represent for me. So I think there's a lot of intriguing options, and yeah, I would not want to see it just limited to the junior heavyweight division.
I think what he has working for his family, at least, is that when he came here, his daughter was very, very young, and she's still too young to be in the public school system or into the American school system or the Japanese school system. So if he were to uproot his family and take them back home, his daughter could go back into the public or into the school system there with no problems. So I think that's the difficult thing about like someone who comes over with a family versus someone who comes in either single or without children. So he has that working for them. Ideally, if he wants to still work and check off his bucket list, because that was the thing he said he wanted to fight around the world. Let him work New Japan Strong. Let him fight. Give me him versus Tom Lawler for the Strong Championship. Please, somebody. Let him go to Impact. Reunite with Shelley and Sabin. If he goes via AEW, if they were able to do something with him, there are plenty of people that could have great matches. I just don't want him stuck in the same situation where he was in NXT, where he got locked into a contract and couldn't truly experience and check off and feel like he had a sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? A sense of fulfillment. Like, I'm not saying he's not fulfilled, but I feel like he's leaving a lot on the table if he's going right back home to New Japan.
You were someone that was like a regular going to a lot of these NXT tapings. Was it the switch over to 2.0 that kind of changed that for you? And I'm kind of curious your perspective of seeing these changes to NXT and that vibe that had been created at Full Sail University and has just been turned on its head over the last year.
My first experience in Full Sail was the finals of the Cruiserweight Classic. So from there, I was absolutely hooked. And as it started to shift towards 2.0 and over the pandemic and seeing so many, I hate to say it, wrestlers get released from NXT, because a lot of the people that were released were people that were, have indie experience, or they came in from abroad, and it was just really heartbreaking to see. And it kind of, for me as a longtime fan, it kind of started giving me reasons not to watch or not to go, because I didn't like, they were letting people go, like putting people out on the street during a pandemic, especially international people, where they're like, you've got 30 days to sort your life out, including your work visa, so you don't get deported. So it was very hard
that's
to
a great
watch.
Sorry to interrupt. That's a great point on the NXT front, is that you don't even have the added cushion of like the 90 days. It's only a 30 that suddenly a check is not coming, and 4 weeks, especially if you're international, like that is just wreaks havoc on your lifestyle.
Especially if you have to move, you have to move out of your apartment, you have to notify your landlord. If you have a car, you have to sell. If there's a lot of small things you have to do in order to prepare to turn around that fast, especially if you're not planning on staying. And it's also, if your visa is sponsored by, say, for example, WWE, if you don't work there anymore, you can't legally work in the United States. So you have to hope that you can find a company, for example, Ring of Honor, Impact, AEW, that will snap you up and give you that stability and be willing to help you take over that work visa. And, it's not an immediate process. So it made it harder and harder for me to go when I could just sit down and watch it in my living room instead of driving across town on a weekday. Because it wasn't like it used to be, where it was like you'd spend 4.5 hours, you bang out 19 matches, and you're good for the month. It was a weekly commitment. Every single Tuesday, you're fighting to get on the list, to get on the bus, to get into the show, and then waiting for the bus to go home. It started wearing on me, because the days they were taping was a day that I had to be at the office. So it just killed the fun for me. And I gave 2.0 a shot. I went to a couple of tapings, and then I realized this NXT was not for me anymore. When the more they stripped out and painted, they gave it a pretty facelift. It looks great. But as somebody who went to many, countless Florida house shows on the Florida Loop, where a lot of the wrestlers are, they're trying out new gimmicks, they're trying out new characters, they're working with the veterans to, improve their fluidity in the ring. They took that and just decided to throw it on TV. So there are people that are doing their best, but they're throwing them in the deep end and saying, hey, figure it out in front of an international audience. Good luck with that. And it was just so hard to watch.
When you were back for some of the 2.0 tapings, has it been a big turnover of the audience? Are a lot of the regulars that were there still coming from the times that you have seen? Or
part of the population that was when we were at Full Sail were the students, because the students got like $5 tickets to get in the venue.
Right.
I think with the switch to the Performance Center, it got a lot of casual fans, but also they're still not charging for admission, for entry. That's the difference.
Right.
I think if it goes back to a paid format, you're going to have a difficult time convincing people to make that commitment to go to the PC weekly, especially because there's no parking nearby. You can't use a rideshare. You have to take their designated buses. And if you have a day job, or you have to be up early the next morning, it can really wear on your own person. They've found a very loyal group of people that are willing to follow the direction of the cheerleader that's on the hard cam side, telling you when to cheer one person, when to boo another person, when to help amp up the atmosphere. I'm in my 40s, John. I just got tired of it. I want to cheer who I want to cheer for. I want to boo who I want to boo. And I'll keep my commentary to myself. It's fine. Me and NXT had a good run. I watch it every now and then, but my reasons for watching are getting fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer.
You know what we got to do, Karen? We should send WH to Florida for a month as our official on-site NXT 2.0 correspondent, and maybe he can let the floor director know his thoughts on who to cheer and who to boo.
You'd have to send him here with bail money for WH and me.
Oh my goodness, that would be something. It's I find like the NXT 2.0 thing, it's just so fascinating of what was created, what grew to such an extent, and what that Wednesday night battle resulted in. And I
Yeah.
think it's going to be months, if not years from now, that we look back and truly see the legacy of what NXT is and this changeover. If it ends up being a success in the sense that they are streamlining the process of characters that are more ready for the vision that they want for Raw and SmackDown, or if it's something that is just not that sustainable of this recruitment process of taking a lot of athletes that have no experience and a very short window to see if they have that ability to adapt to this industry or not.
I think that's one of the frustrating things, is that we had people who quote unquote graduated from NXT that are coming back, and then not only are they coming back, but they're made champion. Like Mandy Rose going up, not really. She's never been a Raw Women's Champion. She's never been a SmackDown Women's Champion. She really hasn't done all that much. But now she came back to NXT, which I get. She was an NXT original. She, like Charlotte, she was one of the ones that they brought in and built her from zero. But it's like, you have all of this new talent you've brought in. Why are you bringing somebody back and making them champion? She doesn't need to be champion. Just like Dolph Ziggler. The man can't have a bad match, but he doesn't need to be champion.
Yeah, it's certainly a work in progress when it comes to the integration as well, I think, of the main roster talent. We're just going to shift focus right now to the ongoing Cinderella tournament. We're down to the Final Four coming out of this Sunday show that did over 1,100 people at Corkune Hall. So, number one, I know you've been following the tournament, Karen, but do you want to bring us up to speed about where we are now with the Final Four? And that's going to be taking place a week from Friday at Oda Ward Gymnasium.
Yeah, next Friday, the 29th of April, starts Golden Week, which is a series of multiple national holidays that are all strung within the end of April, beginning of May. So the Japanese population don't really take like paid time off all that often. They don't go on like long vacations. They don't use their PTO like we do. So Golden Week is a very high travel time because there are so many national holidays strung together. So they're having, a lot of big things happening, starting with the finals of the Cinderella tournament. Now, currently, on the 10th, they had two matches. Hazuki defeated Azumi, and then Shuri, our World of Stardom champion, and Himeka both got eliminated due to a 10-minute time limit draw. The time limit really played a game changer for a lot of the matches that people had in their brackets. I was hoping that, Himeka might pull an upset, but a 10 time limit draw where they're like, this is not nearly enough time for us to finish what we're doing. So it's going to parlay into Himeka challenging Shuri on the day of the finals for the World of Stardom Championship with no time limit. So that should be interesting because Himeka got very far in the 5-Star Grand Prix a couple of years ago. So this could be not a consolation prize, but another opportunity for somebody that's not the top 5 to get another big push. On the 17th, we had several matches, including the quarterfinals. Saya Ida defeated Mai Sakurai. Natsupoi defeated Sayaka Unagi. Koguma staged an upset by eliminating Julia over the top rope. And I know a lot of people saw a video of the Korakuen Hall losing their mind when Saki Kashima defeated Mayu Iwatani. Now, I'm going to put this in perspective for everyone. She did it in 17 seconds.
Yes.
Mayu refused a handshake. She grabbed Mayu, pulled her in, and forced it. Mayu picked her up and suplexed her before the bell. Then they rang the bell, and Saki just did a series of Kishikaise, and on the third time got her. So on top of that, Starlight Kid had the stopwatch, threw it in the ring. Everybody lost their mind because everyone's like, oh, it's Mayu. It's a lock. She's going to totally beat Saki. And Saki is just like, you know what? 2022 is my year. I'm going to and people, you know what? Good for her. Good for Saki because you know what? Oedo ties, they're getting knocked down a couple of pegs here and there, especially with like Starlight Kid getting knocked out in the first round. So it's fine. Let's see. For the quarterfinals, Koguma defeated Saya Ida in a battle of stars versus stars. And then Mirai, who is another one that I think we need to really keep our eye on because she was the one who turned around and defeated Saki in about 7 minutes via submission.
Yeah, so that's sets up our Final Four next Friday with Mirai against Natsupoi and Koguma versus Saya Ida. So as you're looking at this, who would you?
It's Koguma versus Hazuki. So it's Fukuoka Double Crazy Stars tag team partner battles, and then DDM versus former DDM with Mirai and Natsupoi.
And who would you peg as like the favorite that would make the most sense to come out as the winner of the tournament? Because the finals will be later in the show.
It's hard because they both brought Mirai and Natsupoi in the last 2 years, but the real Cinderella story in this particular situation would either be Koguma, but the more likely choice is going to be Hazuki.
And I think that is as we get into the finals as well, just explain for people like what this sets up for the winner, people that have maybe not followed the tournament in the past. The winner, what does that provide for them later in the year?
Okay, so the winner of the tournament, aside from wearing a beautiful Cinderella dress and getting a tiara and a glass slipper shaped trophy, gets to have a wish granted. Now, typically, the winner also challenges for the Wonder of Stardom championship. There have been instances where they've chased the World of Stardom championship, but it seems to be that the pattern is the Cinderella tournament winner usually goes after the white belt, and the 5-star Grand Prix winner in September will go after the World of Stardom championship or the red belt.
And as a whole for the tournament, do you like the time limit situation? Because so many times we focus on like the match times and stuff, and I always find sitting down and watching this tournament that they do some really compelling stuff in under 10 minutes, and you can do a lot of interesting stuff based around this time limit, whether it be a draw or telling a story like Mayu Iwatani losing in 17 seconds. But what's your overall thought on just the structure of the tournament itself?
When I first saw the brackets, I'm like, oh my gosh, they've got 31 people and they're going to do all these, even with a 10-minute time limit. I'm like, knowing that how short some Stardom matches can be, I was just like, oh, this could either go really, really great, or it could make things very, very interesting in a good way. I liked that there was actually double eliminations over the top rope. I love that there were time limit draws, because there were, people would assume that, or if for example, Maika versus Saya Kamitani, everyone's like, oh, well, Saya's the white belt champion. She's a lock. But then everyone's like, well, Maika could totally beat her and then challenge her for the Fukuoka Goddess Festival, which is their next big show. Oh, literally less than a week after the finals of the tournament. So it's one of those things where having the double elimination kind of protects a lot of people, but also helps set up matches very, very quickly for the following shows. I personally like it. It makes it interesting, especially if you're like, oh gosh, I'm not interested in this match because I don't like XYZ person. But then you have someone like Koguma throwing Julia out, or Saki totally upsetting Mayu. So it makes it more must watch to get the full picture of it all.
Yeah, I think they do a really good job with it. Especially for this year, it's a lot a large cast of characters in it, but you get a small sample of like who these people are, and it's for someone, if you have a short attention span as well, like these can be some very compelling stories, and they're not requiring like a giant commitment either. Like you can just take these like bite-sized matches, and it's a great introduction to a lot of the major and minor characters in Stardom. And speaking of which, we also have the news that Konami is returning to the company. We last saw her on that December 29th show. What was this a surprise, her return, Karen? What are some of your reactions to this return, which is going to be coming up during Golden Week?
Okay, so personally, when Shuri first started teasing a new member, I kind of hoped beyond hope that if Konami were ever to come back to Stardom, that she would ditch Uedo Tai, because they've got way too many people now, and finally align herself with Shuri. But again, knowing that she left back in December to take care of her physical health because she had acute enteritis last year and she was really battling that. But being that Shuri was like, just so you know, I've got a fourth person. I know you all are wondering who she is. Here's the video. And it just cuts to Konami. And like, you could tell the audience, they're trying their best not to vocalize their excitement about it. But there's a big, oh, because Konami, they're like, oh my gosh, she's coming back. Now, there are 2 points to this. One, Konami specifically says it's just for the Golden Week fight series. Mm-hmm. So that first week of May, that tour starts in Hiroshima on the 1st, and that's where she's from. So even if you look at the Hiroshima poster, she's dead center on it. And basically it's a 7-week limited time engagement, or 7-day. She starts in Hiroshima, and her last match is on the 7th, and it's against Oedo Tai in a multiple person tag match. So it's one of those things where it might be a litmus test to see how she's doing physically, seeing how if she can be back in the ring, if she's comfortable being back in the ring. A lot of people are like, oh my God, she's back. She is back, but she specifically says in her video promo, it's pretty much 1 week only. And most of those matches will probably be video on demand. The only one that's probably going to be broadcast will be the May 5th, the Fukuoka Goddess Festival, because that's the big pay-per-view they have set for that particular tour.
And the last thing on Stardom, just circling back a couple of weeks ago to Kairi's return. Number one, your reaction to the back-to-back nights and kind of how you see Stardom sort of plotting her year out for her. Like you've explained, like this is not going to be someone that's on every single show. She's going to be used, sparingly for big events. Is that kind of how you see the trajectory for this year?
As someone who's been heavily invested in Kairi's career and, very excited that she was coming back, the last time I was on the news was when we were celebrating Pirate Day. So it seems like every time someone leaves WWE that I'm a big fan of, I wind up magically
you get the call, Karen.
Yes. It must be fate. I hope that they do keep her in this capacity where she's working, elevating new talent. I loved seeing her, team back up with Mayu. I loved her giving the business to Tam and giving Unagi Sayaka just a reminder of why people come to Stardom, because it was people like her who set the foundation. I loved her match with Starlight Kid. It was frustrating to know that she got her eardrum ruptured during that match. But she could easily be someone. I'm going to float it out there. Should Rossi eventually choose to retire, she's the kind of person I could see slotting into that executive position to ensure the future of Stardom.
Yes, it's going to be interesting because this year Rossi Ogawa is up on the Observer Hall of Fame ballot, and if for nothing else, it'll give people an excuse to really go and examine his career that goes back decades. For modern fans, he's going to be associated with Stardom, but what an important figure, and I'm really curious to see sort of the support or not that he receives on the ballot this year as a historical figure now, several decades going back in the history of Japan.
A few years ago, he released an autobiography detailing his involvement in the women's wrestling scene in Japan. And I have yet to pick it up, but I think I might need to add it to the old library over here, because I am curious to see, because, every great promoter is not without their own controversy.
Yes.
But what he's done with Stardom, especially helping to bring them underneath the umbrella of Bushiroad, where they're turning a substantial profit and giving consistently great shows monthly and churning out new talent. Like, people forget, Saya Kamitani's out there doing the Phoenix Splash in the Tokyo Dome, but she's only been wrestling since 2019. So that there's something in the water in the Stardom Dojo that's just cranking out stars.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable system that they have when it comes to just the when a talent debuts and how quickly it kind of like links to like the NXT system as well, like this idea of taking people from scratch and the training methods that they have gone through. And you have seen Stardom, it obviously can be done at an extremely high level. A couple of notes here to round things out just on the television front. Going back to Friday, SmackDown did 2,142,000 viewers. This was going against the NBA playoffs. In the demo, they were down 21% with a 0.48. They were number 2 among network programming. So they definitely took a hit coming off of the prior week show that followed WrestleMania. Rampage, airing outside of its normal time slot, did 482,000 viewers, down 20% from the week before, and down 12% in the demo. Again, this was going against the NBA. They were outside of their time slot. In the demo figure, though, this was still their second highest since the beginning of March. So this was a number that, you can't put too much in when it's airing outside the time. It also did have the big Texas death match involving Hangman Page and Adam Cole. And then the following night, Battle of the Belts 2 doing 527,000 viewers and a 0.18 in the demo. This was down significantly from the first Battle of the Belt special back in January. This did have more sports competition. Saturday night was just ran between the NBA, the USFL was debuting. You had a UFC card that did very well on ESPN, and that's explains some of it. But I think as well, Karen, like the Battle of the Belts concept, I think needs to be retooled because this just felt like an extra hour of AEW programming, and the numbers, like they still finished 10th for the night. That's not a terrible showing, but down dramatically from the first show in January. So I am curious to see what the next quarterly special looks like, and if it is something that is built up to be a bit more appointment viewing.
One of the things that I keep hoping that AEW is going to announce and launch in the, going into their, I think there was it their third year now. I want a singular streaming platform where all of their content can be in one place. I don't want to have to watch 2 different cable TV channels plus go to their YouTube channel to watch all their different programming plus now Ring of Honor. I kind of want them to find like a nice little neat umbrella to just kind of start putting everything in one place, because something like this where it's like it sounds like a good concept, but it could have easily been a network special, as it were, if they were to have their own version of the network or a streaming platform of some kind, or make it a pay-per-view on their YouTube channel where you have to, pay their monthly like $5 subscription or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's also like, we're in this era where creating content, you're so incentivized to do it because of all the money that's attached to it. But in AEW, like they are in the situation where it's essentially on one person's plate that Tony Khan is booking Dynamite. He is booking Rampage. He has this extra hour to produce. He, oversees like Dark and Dark.
He has
Elevation.
Ring of Honor now.
He has Ring of Honor on the plate, and we're not even going to get into his non-wrestling projects, which are full-time jobs. I think it's a real question going into this next set of negotiations for AEW is like how Tony Khan has done a remarkable job balancing all of this, but it's just more and more and more. And if we're talking about like TNT may came back, they might want to expand Rampage to 2 hours. Like how much can be on one person's plate and keep this content fresh, and a Battle of the Belts be like, there's only so many booking ideas you can put in and big matches to put out there. It becomes difficult when it's largely on the shoulders of one central booker.
And that's when like having a creative team or a production team or, different individuals or coaches that you can rely on to handle those different situations and those different brands. Like with Ring of Honor, call me a softie. I just want them to take William Regal and somehow throw a boatload of money at Chris Hero and be like, here, have fun, have all the wrestling, and help all our new guys that and girls and people that are all wanting to be on TV. Like it just seems like he's going to hit burnout at some point and everything's going to come crashing down. And that's not a healthy model, and it's not sustainable for him either.
And even looking down the road, like your hope with Ring of Honor in my mind would be that you build Ring of Honor up to something so that when you do AEW against ROH, you want to have very distinct products. Like it's not like Tony Khan's vision just extrapolated over to 2 brands. Have like a different booker that this is something very non-AEW. We would not see this kind of product on AEW. They're very distinct so that when they collide, there's actually like 2 different ideologies attached to it as well. I look at Ring of Honor, like there's stuff you can do, but I don't know if, Tony Khan just booking another hour of programming every week is the best answer, long-term or short-term.
When you have a specific title like the Pure title, which when Ring of Honor during the pandemic, when they launched that Pure title championship tournament, I was all in because I love a good rule set and the diverse players that they put into that particular tournament. And I feel like with everything he does in AEW, something like that is going to get put on the back burner. But that's something that's very specific and very unique to Ring of Honor, kind of like GLEAT has their UWF rules division. It's something very special, and I know like pardon my language, Bryan Danielson made this whole like, I'm not Ring of Honor anymore, yada 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 yada, and I'm like, all right, well you're not, but you could still show up and cause some trouble.
There's a lot of options, a lot of interesting
there's so
ideas.
many things they could do with it. They just need a person that's not Tony Khan to operate to make sure it gets the same amount of attention and care and booking.
We have one super chat here from Jake who just asks simply, do you guys like the G1 returning to the summer format after we got the fall versions the last 2 years? And I'll add on to that, Karen, like your expectation level for this year's G1, where the hope would be that you have some foreign talent involved.
Okay, so the G1 was my window to New Japan. So I watched Kushida wrestle a young Lion Show Tanaka in a UK tournament at WCPW. And then I asked a friend, they're like, you should start with the G1. And I'm like, okay, great. The problem with the G1 for Karen is that it overlaps with new student orientation, which is absolute worst time of the year for me personally. So I'm glad it's back in the summer. So it gives some breathing room going towards Wrestle Kingdom. But personally, I hate wrecking my sleep schedule because I'm already irritable that time of year. My hope, and I know a lot of people are putting a lot of emphasis and excitement on the possibility of AEW talent going to the G1. My hope is that before those considerations are made, priority is given to the guys of New Japan Strong. I want Chris Dickinson there. I want Tom Lawler there, Fred Rosser, Brody King, the guys that have made New Japan Strong what it has become in the last year and a half. I need those individuals to receive a berth before we start thinking fantasy book Hangman Page's AEW champion in the G1, a returning Kenny Omega who's still injured in the G1. That's great. And I hope everybody gets all excited, but also at the same time, temper your expectations. If we didn't learn anything from the New Japan Cup this year, temper your expectations.
It's a great lesson when getting into the mind of Ghetto. But I would say, honestly, like those are the kinds of people that you want to put in a G1 to elevate their stock. And the value to me of having an AEW representative is like that one outsider. You don't need 5 people from AEW in this tournament. You take one guy and he is the AEW outsider. And
Moxley's done it. If Bryan Danielson wants to be that guy, let him be the guy.
Yeah.
Or Wheeler Yuta. He's been working New Japan Strong. Send him over. It's just like, I don't want people to think that AEW is going to be able to give 6 weeks worth of time for like 5 people to go over to Japan and be in the G1. No. That's not gonna happen.
So what Karen is trying,
it's very ambitious, but I just don't see it happening.
What Karen is trying to say is that when Jado gets announced for the G1, just remember this conversation to always temper expectations, because we have 2 blocks.
When you say all champions and young lions and the juniors again, don't be mad at me.
we got to get the Ghetto Jado G1 showdown, don't we? A B block special.
As long as neither of them pin Tanahashi, I'm fine.
Well, you can.
At this rate, I should be pinning Tanahashi or Kushida. If Kushida's going back to New Japan, they best be putting him in the G1.
At the very least, that should be your World Tag League combo, is Tanahashi Kushida.
Whew, yes, please.
A great idea. There you go. We're not going to give all these ideas away for free. But I want to thank everybody for joining us. Wednesday, we will be back. Wei Ting will return from his vacation, unless he gets back here and just is disgusted at the snow that we are getting in Toronto. He is in for a rude awakening when he flies back here, but he will be here tomorrow, 1 Eastern. Tonight, NXT will be airing at 8 Eastern on the USA Network. We have 3 matches announced, with Natalya against Tatum Paxley, Sarai versus Tiffany Stratton, and Santos Escobar against Carmelo Hayes. And then right after the show, you can tune in at twitch.tv/upnextpodcast. Braden and Davey will have a whole rundown of NXT 2.0. And maybe you can keep a close eye for the floor director and see what the reactions are like inside the WWE Performance Center. But Karen, I want to thank you so much. And where can people check out any of your work if you want to throw it out there?
Well, you can follow me right here at Post Wrestling. On next Friday, I'll be doing the Stardom Cinderella tournament, and I do a lot of Stardom coverage for all the big shows right here at Post. If you want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at Hey Karen Sensei, that's pretty much where I am most of the time. Sometimes I dabble in Twitch, sometimes I dabble in YouTube, but not nearly as much. I'm more of a written format instead of video format type of girl right now.
I will say this, and yes, we are biased being here at Post Wrestling. Her reports are fantastic. If you are thinking of getting into Stardom, you will read one of her reports and you will be hooked. It is a fantastic read every time there's a major Stardom show. So Karen, I want to thank you so much for jumping on. As usual, I said we'd go like 20 minutes or so, and I've kept you way past that time. So thank you so much.
For you, John, I don't mind.
And that is going to wrap it up, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Post Daily News Show.